We are live. Welcome to a special edition of the CK Podcast. I'm your host, Leo Biaz, and today I want to welcome one of the best NBA YouTube content creators, B Souls, to the show, and he is also a host of Keep It a Buck podcast. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Good. How about you?
I'm good, man. I'm watching the Celtics game. Well, I was watching the Celtics game, and I was pretty impressed with how they were performing against arguably one of the best teams, if not the best team right now, record-wise, in the Phoenix Suns. And they were
Yeah.
playing pretty well without Jaylen Brown tonight, which is even more impressive. Kemba Walker seems like he's getting back to Kemba Walker form. And, I do want to focus a lot on the Celtics and the up and down season that they've had because my goodness has been up and down all year. And I'm sure there's a little bit of frustration from Celtics fans in general and the lack of moves that could have been made at the deadline, watching other teams make moves. And then Danny Ainge essentially just holding on to their picks, to their assets that he's garnered for such a long time now. We'll get into that and the possibilities of them beating, say, a Nets team, a healthy Nets team,
Yeah.
and even a Bucks team as well. So first and foremost, man, just tell my audience who you are and 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 what you do on YouTube.
Yeah. Real quick, before we went live, we were talking about the score of the Phoenix Boston game. It was like a
Right.
17-point game, right?
Yep.
It's a 9-point game now.
What? That was like 2 minutes
Yo,
ago.
that's what I. Hey, in proper Celtics fashion. What's up, everybody? Um, my name's Brian. I go by B Souls on YouTube. I've been doing YouTube pretty much since like my junior sophomore year of high school. And I've been fortunate enough to grow the platform to the point where it's really been my only job so far in my life. Very, very fortunate to have that. Um, I have an NBA channel. It used to be just voiceover stuff. I've tried to transition to showing my face the last couple of years. Had some mixed results. For the most part, way better than I thought. A lot of people, when they watch my videos, they more so watch it for me because I upload it instead of just the information I spew out, which is very hard to do in the NBA space. Um, I also got a podcast as well, trying out TikTok. But yeah,
How
aside
is
from the
TikTok
content
right
creation,
now for NBA news in general?
for NBA news in general, the way I'm structuring the TikTok is more so like podcast highlights.
Okay.
Not really the stuff I put on YouTube, but honestly, I feel like if I really did put the time and effort more into TikTok, um, the audience is definitely there. There's certain people on NBA TikTok that talk about NBA takes that have like 500, 600,000
Wow.
followers on there. TikTok's just wild, man. TikTok is wild, but yeah. Aside
That's
from the
wild.
content creation stuff, I'm in college, spring semester of college, computer engineering major, man.
That's
Last
awesome.
2 weeks of the semester, man. It's
Finish
hard.
strong. So,
Yeah.
how do you balance that with being consistent with your NBA channel?
You definitely have to make sacrifices. Um, that's something
Snow partying?
I look. The thing is, I would say if you look at my channel, if you go back in like fall of 2018, spring of 2019, you can see like my views kind of plateaued, the uploads, the frequency kind of stagnated. That was my fun in college. But after that, I just doubled down on the YouTube stuff because I feel like if I wasted this opportunity, this is opportunity that a lot of people my age, a lot of people that look up to me, my siblings even.
Right.
This is like a dream of theirs, so I don't want to just waste that over a couple nights out of the week.
Absolutely.
But the biggest sacrifice is definitely that social life. Um, but with the hopes that down the line, that's something I gain back if I make it my own career, so I can work on my own time, go out whenever I want, that type of stuff.
Yeah, man, I feel the same way because when I was in college, I think I partied maybe 3 times in the 4 years at the University of Nevada, Reno. And I don't regret it because at the end of the day, I tell people it put me in a position to where I am today, which is covering the team that I love in the Sacramento Kings. And obviously, there's been growing pains since I graduated and just growing the channel a different way, more via Instagram and trying to get local sponsors to sponsor certain thing, and then transitioning to just being a content creator for all industries and not just basketball, and trying to strategize around that. And I tell people it's not easy. There's definitely a lot of sacrifices that have to be made. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, man, both you and I love what we do, and we love basketball, which is the one thing that can combine cultures, races, whatever the case is, man. And to me, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the Boston Celtics, they've been up and down all season long, man. And not too long ago, before they went on this winning streak, they were below 500, which was really weird because we haven't seen the Celtics below
Yeah.
500 in a long, long time. And there's a lot of finger pointing that we can point to. But to me, when I watch them play, I see a team that's suited for the playoffs where their offense isn't flowing the way it was in previous years, where they had a nice free flow offense, lots of ball movement, and now it's a lot of one on one. JT getting tough shots, Jalen getting tough shots, making them, but still, it's not really putting everybody else in positions to succeed. And I just feel like, yes, you want these tough shot makers in the playoffs, but in the regular
Hmm.
season where there's only literally 3 games separating the 4 seed from the 8 seed, they can literally be out of the top 6 and then have a 1 game playing game
Yeah.
and get bounced. So
Get balance. Yep.
when you see this team digress a little bit, just overall, what comes to mind?
Disappointment.
Right.
I ain't gonna lie. Specifically coming off of last year where we went to the Eastern Conference Finals, you would assume that Kemba comes back healthy because that was one of the big problems. Is like Kemba wasn't healthy coming back; it was a little rushed. So you would assume coming back that we would perform better with everyone healthier. Um, but this season, the injury bug has definitely hit us hard. Um, and honestly, coming from a season where depth was kind of something, or specifically the last 2 years, there's been this notion with the Celtics that there's too many shot creators,
Hmm.
too many people that need the ball in their hands to be effective. And then we go into this season, and it's to me it's just ironic that one of our biggest problems is depth, specifically coming from the 2019 season where we had so much talent, and the problem was, yes, we have 6, 7 players that individually can score 15 or 20 points a game, but as a collective unit don't work together. Now we kind of have the opposite. It's just it's Kemba, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum. Kemba's been pretty inconsistent this year. He's been picking it up, and you kind of get points where you can after that. Um, but yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's one of my big things too, where you have an NBA trade deadline, you have all these assets that Danny Ainge has accumulated over the years, and yeah, you go out and you get a guy like Fournier, but that's not something that I can see that moves the needle per se, especially
yeah,
when we had all these rumors of potential Aaron Gordon or even Harrison Barnes from the Kings potentially going to the Celtics, and watching the Nets make all the moves that they've made, watching the Bucks make
yeah,
moves, like even little moves like getting a guy like PJ Tucker, which is going to be huge in the playoffs for them. And then the Celtics kind of staying put, saying, you know what, we're happy with what we got, and we're happy with being an average team because that's what they've been all season long, right? Let's
yeah.
make no mistake about it. So when you see all these assets and deadline after deadline, Danny Ainge not making moves, do you feel like he's on the hot seat if they get bounced early in the playoffs?
Honestly, don't think so. I
Okay.
feel like I feel like Boston has such a huge attachment to Danny Ainge, and with all the mistakes he has made and the trades he has passed up on, when you look at his track record, he still has acquired Jason Tatum through the draft. in a way where specifically that day there was a lot of pushback on that selection. Like,
Facts.
people thought passing up on Markel was a mistake, and even drafting Jason Tatum was kind of like, okay, why didn't you draft Josh Jackson? He's supposed to
Right.
be the next Kawhi, and here we are like 5 years down the line, and if anything, Jason Tatum is way closer to being a Kawhi Leonard type of player than Josh Jackson.
No doubt.
Um, the draft before, same thing with Jaylen Brown. That draft was supposed to be a two-person draft, and then when he drafted Jaylen Brown, there was again a lot of pushback. I vividly remember a lot of Celtics fans wanting the Celtics to draft Chris Dunn or Buddy Hield, even Dragon Bender. There was still that hype with Dragon Bender.
Dragon Bender.
Yeah, they're like,
Shout out
no,
to
y'all
him.
y'all just pass up on next Porzingis. I'm like, okay, all right,
So,
but yeah,
talking
that's
about
those
Brown
those.
though, man, do you regret not trading him for Kawhi Leonard?
That's a tough question. I ain't gonna lie. I would have to look back at the construction of the whole team. Um, right now, I would say yes. It's
For sure.
yeah, because the one thing that the Celtics have needed the last couple of years is that one guy to push us over the top, and we're kind of banking on Jason Tatum being that next guy. But there are nights where he feels like a player closer to a Kawhi Leonard, and there are nights where I'm kind of wondering if he's just as good as Brandon Ingram. And no slight to Brandon Ingram, but that's
That's so
two
funny,
levels.
bro. That's
That's two
so
levels.
funny you bring that up because that is literally one of my topics of discussion today. It's Brandon Ingram. That's a perfect transition, actually. So let's move into that topic. Brandon Ingram, to me, is a guy that was drafted number 2 overall. We know all that history and how he got drafted to the Lakers. At the time where the Lakers weren't what they are today, they were very dysfunctional. They had Luke Walton as a coach, and Ingram went through a lot of injuries. And I always pose this question. Obviously, it's a hypothetical, but what if, because when I look at Tatum, I feel like Tatum got drafted into a great culture and he got drafted onto a great team already with a lot of great surrounding pieces that really highlighted his skill sets on a big stage. But I want to kind of, flip the script and say, what if he would have been drafted by the Lakers and then Ingram would have went to the Celtics? Because there was a time before Ingram was an all-star that people had doubts, oh, he's a bust, he's nowhere near, Tatum, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, no, like, I feel like he's very skilled and he's that guy, but he just hasn't had the chance to. And a lot in the NBA comes down to opportunities and structure and where you get drafted. So, do you think it would have been the same story if Ingram would have been drafted by the Celtics, say hypothetically at number 2, and then Tatum going to a very bad organization at the time? Like, would the perception be different with
Are you
this?
talking about Brown? Because Ingram and Tatum were two separate drafts.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
what?
yeah. But like,
Okay.
but like the perception of Ingram never being as good early on, like a Jason Tatum, and then Ingram just being like left on the ground in terms of NBA perception of him not being as good as what he was supposed to be, right? Where he wasn't as highlighted, he
Yeah.
wasn't making the playoffs like a Jason Tatum. But Jason Tatum went into a perfect situation, which then leads me to it was mostly you bringing him up and me bringing up the question of do you think that Ingram and Tatum are close as NBA players, or is it just this huge drop off of just overall skill sets?
I believe as of right now, there is a sizable gap between Tatum and Ingram, and I think that comes in the form of honestly defense. And I think scoring wise, I would say Tatum is better still. So that's where the gap is. But like whenever I make my top 50 list, Ingram is usually in the 20s, 30s, and Tatum is creeping up into that 15, 13, 12 mark. So I guess that's the gap to me right now. But going back to your other question in terms of perception, I feel like Ingram still would have got slack compared to what Tatum received. Because Tatum's situation was more of, yo, he wasn't supposed to be this good and he's exceeding our expectations. As opposed to Ingram, where he came into the draft and it was supposed to be a two-person draft.
Yep.
He was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant. So if he comes into the league and he's averaging 13, 14 points like Tatum was averaging his rookie year, on let's say 45, 35, 77 splits. While as a rookie, objectively speaking, those are still good numbers, especially on a winning team. People are still gonna go back to comparing him to KD. Like this isn't the generational talent we were expecting of. And really that's what people thought of Brandon Ingram going into the league. Was honestly a generational talent, a player you can't pass up by unless it's Ben Simmons, who was another player that people thought was a generational talent. So
Okay, that's fair. So you feel like, do you feel like Ingram would have had a better career early on if he would have been drafted, say, by the Celtics, like been drafted into that type of culture?
I feel like his perception would have been better, yes.
Okay.
But overall though, I still feel like there would still be this sentiment of he should be better. At least his first couple years. I don't know how he'll develop. Um, with these hypotheticals, there's always that. There's always so many factors you have to take into account. Um, how people take certain types of leadership, stuff like that. But
Okay, so let's move on essentially to the question of the show, and that's a healthy Celtics roster versus a healthy Nets roster. Do the Celtics have a fighting chance against the Nets?
I would, I think they can win 2 games if that's a fighting chance.
That's a
I mean,
fighting chance to me.
yeah, I feel like if a series goes to 6 games, then that means game
You,
6.
you think they can win 2 games? Or,
Fully,
or
fully healthy.
or is that
Yeah,
like the fan inside of you saying that?
2 games max to me. Fully healthy against the Nets, 2 games max to me. So,
Okay.
and we're also assuming that the Nets are fully healthy as well.
Yes,
So
yes. That's why it's like, I mean, it's fair. I get it. I mean, if Tatum's killing, obviously, who is the X factor in that series for the Celtics in your opinion?
I feel like it would have to be Kemba. It would have to be Kemba because when Kemba is hitting his shots, even last year, that's what took us from a Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum led team where you have 2 guys that can average 25 a game to let me add another guy that can give you 23 and on really good efficiency and can really light you up and has a potential of scoring 40, 50, 60. So if Kemba is hitting his shots, um, that would be the X factor to me. Um,
Okay.
but
So Kemba has been playing well as of late, right? Where he's been kind of banged up and he hasn't been himself. Do you think he's on the same level when he's clicking as a Kyrie Irving?
I don't think so because
Okay.
if we're assuming that Kyrie's clicking as well, when Kyrie is clicking, it's just you literally can't do anything to stop him. Like you can be all up in his grill and he's just gonna drain the toughest shots ever. Can give you 60 in a night on like 70% shooting. Like that's a dude Kyrie is. And Kemba is capable of those nights here and there, but
Not as
um
consistently.
not as consistently. Like if I'm taking a Kyrie that's really on fire, like he can average 30 to 35 in a series on ridiculous efficiency and like the toughest shots you've ever seen. So
So the
yeah.
Nets. Obviously you're an NBA guy. Just overall, do you feel like that team, this current team, fully healthy, is better than the Warriors with Kevin Durant, the Klay
I
Thompson,
I
Draymond?
don't I don't think so. The
No.
difference would be defense. Specifically if we're comparing it to 2017, 2018,
Yeah.
the defense that the Warriors had. Heck, even the defense KD was playing. Like the defense the Warriors were playing were so good back then that it made Kevin Durant look like a good defender or like a above average defender. I remember back then there were conversations about Kevin Durant being a great defender. Now those conversations have waned down, but as a team as a whole, um, I would still it honestly offensively as well. Um,
Really? That's crazy.
I would still say the Nets are better offensively, but the gap between a an offense with Curry, Clay, and KD and Draymond, I don't think it's as big of a gap compared to what the Nets have right now, as people make it seem.
So it's interesting to me that you bring up defense, and when I think about this construction of the Nets, they have, I feel like, three solid defenders in Shamit, Brown, and the shooter. So who on the, I mean, I'm just trying to think like that. You say defense, and I'm not arguing with the fact that the Warriors are really good defensively, but are you saying that the Nets are substantially worse defensively?
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. And this again, if people want to disagree, go ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
this
I just want your point of view
yeah,
because like
yeah.
it's not like the Nets have again like scrubs on defense,
Mhm.
and yeah,
I
I
guess
like
it's just when we're talking about the Warriors, at least statistically speaking, from what I remember, and even just watching them play, we're talking about like an all-time great historical defense compared to what you're saying is the Brooklyn Nets have a couple of solid defenders, and they might not be as bad on defense as people make it seem, which I think um, is a good take as well. Like I don't think the worst defense in history as some people, including myself, were kind of thinking looking at the lineup. But yeah, when you're comparing it to the Warriors, we're talking about an all-time great defense and one of the best offenses of all time compared to the Nets, where it's also one of the greatest offenses of all time, but the defense is not anything historical. So that to me is the gap. Also, the Warriors were more proven um, going
without
into the
question,
KD seasons.
without
Yeah.
question. So let's transition to who your MVP is this season.
The MVP race, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I'm confused. I've never been so confused with the MVP race. Because historically speaking, it's always gone to the dude that's putting up great numbers and has led their team to a top four record in the league. Like I looked it up. It's like a 90% success rate on that. Every MVP aside from like 6 to 7, that's been the common denominator. But when you look at this season, because because of the fact that Embiid's miss games, because of the fact that the top two seeds in the West are led, the MVP candidates we would mention would be Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell, who statistically just aren't eye popping enough, especially when you compare it to a Luka, Curry, to an Embiid, to a Giannis. Um, and then when you compare that to the guys who are putting up crazy numbers, the Currys, the Jokic's, the Lukas, and the amount of wins that their teams have, it's just it's very confusing. It's very confusing. I would lean towards Jokic right now. I think he has the best combination of crazy stats, really good winning narrative as well. So I'd lean towards Jokic. But I will say if Jokic does win it, just statistically speaking, that would be an outlier. That would be an outlier. So
Does does Chris Paul or Damian Lillard make your top three?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the rest of my top three off the dome, and this might change. It would be Jokic, Embiid, and Harden or Giannis. Like a combination of those four, with
Okay.
Jokic being one. Um,
And
I just think Dame. I don't think he's and Dame again. Dame is one having a phenomenal season. I don't want to take away from that, but it's just comparing it to everyone else. I would say the other guys I mentioned are having a more impressive season. And I think Chris Paul, the efficiency's there, the winning's there. It's just the volume of the stats just isn't there. And when I say like my top three in MVP voting, I'm more so thinking of who I think is gonna win the award as opposed to my personal values of who I think the MVP should be, if that makes sense.
so what do you value then? Because it sounds like you think Jokic is winning, but you kind of value, maybe from what I'm hearing, stats more than winning, or just overall impact?
Um, when it comes to the MVP award, I honestly value upholding the um the standards that have been set in place the last 40, 50 years. That sounds like very conservative, man. I guess it is. But I feel like if we just have a different criteria of what an MVP is every single year, then you're kind of illegitimizing the award because it seems like every year it's like a pick and choose type thing. As opposed to if there's a criteria that you see that historically has worked, why not just stick to that? And you can make your own judgments on who actually is the best player in the league of the season, based off of your own personal values. But in terms of winning the award, I would much rather maintain that consistency and just leave the the more personal debates as personal debates compared to translating those personal debates to who actually deserves the award.
Okay, that's fair. I kind of want to talk about one of your most recent videos, which people should definitely go check out, and that's that Kevin Durant video with kind of had beef with Shannon, and obviously the big one, beef with the comedian. And I just kind of want to talk about today's social media aspect and what you truly believe. Oh, and then the most recent thing of him leaving Russ off his top five at first, and
Oh
then
yeah, yeah.
and then the other guys correcting him, and then him saying, "You're right, you got me, my bad," blah blah blah, and the Stephen A's of the world essentially just saying that he did that on purpose. Do you think he did that on purpose?
Honestly, just looking at that podcast because I watched a couple minutes of it. By a couple, I mean like the first like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
As hard as it seems to comprehend, like it seems hard to believe, but I truly do think he just forgot about Russ, which is wild. That and you and we that might be its own thing. Like the fact that you forgot about Russ, that's a whole that might be another topic in it of itself. But I honestly think he just forgot about Russ, and it's not as big of a deal as the media made it seem. I don't think he was trying to throw deliberate shots at Russ by not putting him there. I guess it was just a mental lapse. And he did correct it immediately right after. Restructured his top five. Not only put Russ in his top five, he put him at four.
Right.
And literally told the host that you're right, I'm bugging. Thank you for calling me out on that. So even I feel like if I don't know, I just feel like when it comes to social media, there's this thing where you're not allowed to make any mistakes,
No
which I think
doubt.
is dangerous. I think is dangerous to expect perfection from content creators. More specifically, the one thing I've noticed is like these live stream platforms, whether that be the podcast we're on right now, people that live stream on Twitch, or in a podcast format like the one KD was on. These are supposed to be structured in a way where they are conversational. You know what I'm saying? Like we're including the mistakes to make them feel more human.
Hmm.
And when you criticize people for making mistakes, that's that's hard. That's hard on people, and that I feel like that kind of leads into why KD is so aggressive on Twitter. Is that he's just trying to show that like I am just one of y'all. Like the only difference is I'm like 7 feet tall and I can cook every single one of y'all in the one on one. But I'm on Twitter. I signed up the same way just as y'all. Y'all just followed me because I'm an NBA player, but I have the same right as you to respond to certain people, to be in these conversations. And just because I am an NBA player, that doesn't mean that I am above you, which I feel like is something that's profound in a way. Um, the fact that we can communicate. A random Joe Schmo can communicate with arguably the second best player in the world. Um, I think that's cool.
No doubt.
Some
No doubt. Honestly, bro, this has been the best answer I've heard in terms of humanizing the star or the popular public figure. Like you're right. Sometimes in a conversational setting like this, you just talk, you feel comfortable, and things slip out, or sometimes you just have a blank moment where you do forget.
Yeah.
And coming into this, I ain't gonna lie, I was like, hell no, that was on purpose. He definitely did that. But now, how you kind of explained it, you're selling me on the idea that you know what, he was so comfortable that he just had like a blank moment, and that's okay because he's also human, and everyone's allowed to make mistakes, right?
Yeah, I mean, even on this pod right now, like people might look back 4 months down the line and call me stupid for whatever take I said. I'm like, all right, I'm sorry, I can't predict the future. You know what I'm saying? Like we're here
Right.
to have these basketball conversations, and while people look at my following and say, "Yo, you should know more about basketball,"
Yeah,
you know, like I feel like we should have we should not normalize because I feel like you should expect a little bit more from people who make a living off of certain
for
things,
sure.
but just just don't go crazy off of small mistakes because at least with my videos, like people go crazy off of one small mistake in a video in the comment section. Like recently, I ain't gonna lie, again, this is my fault. I said Utah was a city, and they yeah, so they clown me in the comment section for calling Utah city, which again is understandable,
Yeah,
but and I've heard this from other people in the community as well, is like y'all are really focusing on this one minute,
that's crazy, bro.
mistake when we spent like 7, 8, 10
Hours.
hours researching, what I'm saying, editing, recording, put our heart and soul into this stuff, and you know,
Hey, that's
to
social media
focusing
for
on
you,
that one
bro.
thing
That's
is wild.
social media, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's sad, man. That's the one thing that they highlighted was that one honest mistake.
Yeah. Well, some of
That's
it is just
funny.
playful banter, but
Have you ever been to Salt Lake?
no.
Okay, so that's fair, y'all. So it's ridiculous, man. Like, come on. Like one time, my wife thought Denver and Colorado were in a sense different. I'm like, babe, one's a state and one's a city. It happens sometimes, man.
Yeah.
No,
Another mistake I make a lot is saying Australia is part of Europe. That's another bad one I make.
yeah, it's not part of Europe, but
Yeah, yeah. When
yeah.
I said Dante Exum played in the Euro League, they were on me, man. I'm like,
Oh
yo,
shit.
my bad, dude. My bad. That's on me. That's on me.
All right, so I want to be respectful of your time. Has there been a team that has surprised you this season?
The Knicks.
Okay.
It's the Knicks, bro. I mean, every year we expect them to be garbage, and for them to be
Fourth,
competitive,
the fourth
fourth
seed.
seed. Yeah, is impressive. It's impressive for Julius Randle to be a leader of a playoff team and to truly be a leader of a playoff team is impressive. Like I specifically remember going into the season, one of the podcasts I watched, they were clowning the Knicks because like who is gonna lead them? Julius Randle,
Yeah.
and now like we're talking about like you know so many months after the fact, and yes, Julius Randle is actually leading the Knicks to the playoffs.
That's crazy.
People were talking about how like Julius Randle had, he might have to watch out for Obi Toppin, man. Hey, Obi Toppin is coming. Now it's
Psych.
nah. No, he's Obi
Oh
Toppin
my
is not on
god.
Julius Randle's level, with all due respect.
That's
But
fair. That's fair. The Knicks have played well. Tom Thibodeau has changed the perception of that organization. That team takes after his personality, which is very fiery. They play great defense. They're still offensively challenged, but I feel like the hardest thing to teach when you're at that level is defense because everybody can score. Like all these
yeah,
dudes are professional scorers, man. And so to me, for this team to understand certain schemes already, and there is an infuse of young talent on that team, right? With Emmanuel and then with
RJ Barrett.
yeah, and Toppin. So uh, obviously, it takes time, but they've done a great job of scouting, and that's something that I'm hoping that the Kings do, man. Because when you had
Yeah,
me on that on your pod, I remember I was saying it would be such a King's thing to do to pass up on Luka. And what do?
I
They
that was the
pass
one thing
up
I
on
really wanted
Luka.
to add. That was the one thing I wanted to ask you, bro. Because I remember you coming
I
on the
told you
pod.
guys that it wasn't out of
Yeah,
the ordinary for that to happen, and it happened.
yeah. You were like pretty pushing the fact that like the Kings, they're looking at Luca, and then they draft back. And I literally texted my people. I'm like, yo, didn't Leo just said they were gonna draft Luca? So that was wild. That was
Yeah,
wild to
yeah,
see.
it
Like
was
every
crazy
time I think of the
because
Kings draft, I just think of that pod with you, bro.
they went right to go watch Luca play in the Final Four. They had pictures on social media with Luca, Suns owner Vivek and Vladi, and I was like, damn, perfect. And even his Anil, the son of the owner, he was like, yeah, it's looking good. And then I get word uh 2 days before the draft, and that's when my stomach dropped, bro. I kid you not. I was sick to my stomach. And obviously, I didn't report it or I didn't say anything, but I was sick for the next two
Yeah.
days. And I was like, no, why? I was hoping that day they had a change of heart, but I knew what was gonna happen, and it just made me sick, man. So, and I
Yeah.
think I think I was on your pod maybe like a week before the NBA
Yeah.
draft. So
It was really close to the
s-
NBA draft.
so the news is coming different every day. You obviously hear different things, different agents. Again, the NBA is agent driven, so you hear
Yeah.
different things. And but when it was confirmed to me that like roughly about 2 days before, oh man, I just wanted to go on my own pod, your pod, everybody's pod, and just scream like, "What the?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why? Because he worked out for you guys? Like, cause he says that he likes it here? Like, and now he hates it here. Now he wants
Yeah.
to leave. Now his dad wants to leave, and oh man. So you hear all these like, I was in the locker room with Luka Doncic interviewing him when he played the Kings in Sacramento, and he I showed him a picture of a Kings fan that had a customized 77 Luka Doncic Kings jersey, and I kid you not, man, he smiled like, and he told his PR guy, said, text that to me. So he told me to text it to his guy. Like obviously that meant something to him because remember, Luka grew up watching Vladi and Peja. Like he idolized these guys.
Mhm.
So it was only fitting to that he was like the chosen one, and the Kings went from 7 to 2 in that draft lottery, and it just made complete sense that Luka was going to be the guy that got the Kings out of this awful 15-year drought. And so again, I feel like he wanted to be a king, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of Vlade and Luca's dad having personal stuff, that was one thing in the huge narrative that was put out there. It wasn't so much about that from stuff that I've heard, but it's just funny that that's what's been reported, and now it's like Marvin's dad that does wants nothing to do with the Kings. So it's
Yeah.
just counterintuitive to everything that has been
Yeah.
reported, man. But
That's
that's
just that's just wild, man. That's just wild. Again, because I remember that pod, bro, and I was like,
yeah,
yeah, okay, the Kings are drafting Luca. After what he told us, made
yeah,
perfect sense. And I see Marvin Bagley. I'm like, yo, what
yeah.
happened, bro? What happened?
Yeah. But that's the life
Um,
of a Kings fan, man. Unfortunately, being the Celtics fan is a lot nicer, and at least you guys get to talk about playoffs. I always tell people I would switch places because people always want to shit on the Blazers for being a good perennial playoff team, but never being good enough to win a championship. But I'm like, dude, I'd rather have these conversations of making little tweaks to like how can we get there than being the bottom dweller for the last 15 years. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's
yeah,
being a winning organization like the Blazers, like the Celtics, even though it's hard winning a championship. People don't understand. There's only one champion every single year. So being
yeah,
in the conversation to me is a lot better than just being, oh, let's draft whoever next. And the like Kings fans get excited about the unknown, bro. Like they'll be like, "Oh, this guy has potential." Like, no, he doesn't. But that's just what they want to
let me
believe.
let me ask you a question then.
Go ahead.
Would you rather have or be a fan of a team that's a perennial playoff team, but is never in those conversations to actually win the championship? Or would you rather be a fan of a team that's
Always
really
tanking.
bad for five, 6 years, but that 1 year they do strike is gonna be like the Brooklyn Nets, where they get, you know, three top 12 players in the league, top 15 players in the league, and it's just crazy.
It's not
Essentially,
fair.
another question, another way to phrase it is, if you were to pick from start from 2013, would you rather have would you rather be a Celtics fan or a Nets fan? Essentially,
Oh, Celtics fan, because there's consistency every single year, and there's an expectation with the Nets. They were always a laughing stock, right?
mm,
Just like the Clippers, but we always knew that even in a market like the Clippers or the Nets, that is still New York and it's still LA. So it it would take a average competent GM to turn things around, and that's what happened. When you're in a small market, the rules don't apply. Like
that's true.
like the
Yeah,
rules change. So when you ask me if I rather have a team that's a perennial playoff team, absolutely, because at the end of the day, even like the Blazers who made it to the conference finals that one was it 2 years ago, and
yeah.
people want to say, oh, it was because of injuries. Hey man, the game of basketball is predicated on injuries. The reason why the Raptors
You
won
can't
the
avoid that.
championship
Yeah.
is because KD got hurt. So my thing is at least give yourself a chance and put yourself in the position to win the championship. Not necessarily like, oh, let's be sucky for the next 5 years and hope that we strike Kate Cunningham, Luka, and whoever else. Like, I get that strategy, but the other strategy is consistently having a winning culture to where you are the Warriors, you do draft one or two guys, and now perceptionally, other guys are looking at you like, hey, man, that may be a destination. Like, I may be the missing piece to their
Hmm.
puzzle, right? To where if you're the Kings, who the hell wants to go to Sacramento? As it is, it's hard to get free agents because you're in
Yeah.
Sacramento. And then if you're just losing, that's a toxic environment, man. And guys don't want to be around that. So
Yeah.
I do rather have a team that's a perennial playoff team like the Blazers, always trying to tweak it, always trying to bring in a two wing or potentially getting rid of CJ to bring in a bigger, star kind of borderline all star to go with Dame. So those are all to me good problems to have, man. Rather than, well, like the Kings are in the middle. They're not awful to where they're getting the top five pick and then they're not making the playoffs. So they're like
Yeah.
stuck in NBA purgatory, which is the
That's the
worst
worst
thing you
part.
can do.
Yeah. That's the thing that frustrates a lot of people about the Celtics as well, is because they're not bad enough to get like a bad pick, but they're clearly not good enough to be, or at least a lot of people think.
Yeah.
I would say so as well, because of their bench, to be in that conversation with the Nets, with the Sixers, of actually making it out the East. Now, if they do, then that'd be amazing. And
So what's the
I feel like.
Celtics missing? Okay, that's a great way to transition to the last part of the show. What are they
Mhm.
missing? Like if you had a guy that you can pinpoint and say this dude would get us to the promised land, who would that guy be? Or is it one guy?
Mm, I feel like that's like a relative question, because when you're you would inevitably have to compare them to the Nets. So essentially, that question translates to what would be one guy that would make them comparable to the Nets. And I feel like the way to beat the Nets would be to combat the Nets star power with depth. I feel like, because the starting lineup of the Celtics is decent already. Like, they have a
Very.
decent amount of star power, but if they can have people coming off the bench that can give you that constant production for 48 minutes, that would help a lot. That would help a lot.
So who comes to mind though? Like there's a bench player that you would say would make the difference. Because when I think about the move that you guys made to bring
Mm,
in a guy like Fournier, who's career average what 15 to 17 points per
yeah.
game. Like in theory, he would be the perfect bench player, but it really hasn't. And again, it's early. It takes some adjustment period time. But is he not the type of scorer that you want coming off your bench?
He definitely helps, but I feel like the Celtics bench is so bad that, yes, you add Evan Fournier and that improves things, but in the grand scheme of things, I think the Celtics still have a poor bench. In terms of a specific name, off the dome right now, I'm trying to look around. Um, I can't really find one, so I might have to look into that a little bit more.
Or would you just want to combat because you have two stars and Jayson and Tatum? Would you want to combat their star power with say another like all star and then really get rid of whatever depth you have and get rid of all the draft assets that you've accumulated?
Give me like two more Evan Fournier level players off the
Okay.
bench. I don't know specifically right now, but two more players like that. And again, assuming everyone's healthy, assuming everyone's being coached properly, I think that could compete with the Nets. And it would still be a tough seven. It's just hard to really envision like you
So the
know.
Bucks, so the Bucks, for example, do the Bucks have a chance to beat the Nets?
I think so.
Me too, man.
I
Like
think
I'm
so.
not. People are like, "Nah, well, the
Okay.
Nets are just gonna steamroll over." I'm like, I
I
don't
think
know if they are.
it should it's tough because the Bucks match up very well defensively to the Nets. And again, you're
Facts.
you're never gonna stop a
Right.
Kyrie, a Harden, and a
Right.
KD. But that's one of the best lineups to go up against that. And offensively,
But they're also not gonna stop Giannis,
that's
Drew,
what I'm saying.
and
Yeah,
Chris.
that's what I'm saying. It's, especially Giannis, because Giannis has gained this perception of he's a playoff underperformer. But when you look at it, it's really just when he goes up against a team that has the personnel to stop him. A
Right.
la the 2019 Raptors, the Miami Heat last year. You can even say the Celtics in 2018 in that first round. But even that, like he was balling against the Celtics, so that might not even be a good example. But when you look at the Nets, they just don't have that personnel to stop Giannis. And Claxton has shown some promise,
He's
but if
nice.
if you're really he's nice, but if that's really what you're banking on to stop Giannis, in the grand scheme of things, I still don't think they have the personnel to stop Giannis. And the Bucks, with the talent that they have, with the defense that they have, and a Giannis that I'm gonna be honest, he might average 35 that series, 35, 36, put up like Shaq numbers. I think that can beat the Nets. That can beat the Nets.
All right, my man. B Souls. What type of projects, videos should we look forward to in the next couple of weeks, man?
Yeah, man. Yeah, just subscribe to the channel, BSOLZ. In terms of releasing content, I've just been taking it week by week because you never know with the NBA.
That's true.
Also, trending topics help as well. But more specifically, the one thing I've been really focusing on lately is my podcast as well. The Let's Keep It a Buck podcast. It's a platform where I get to go on with my friends, and again, like we talked about, I think basketball is great when you can have actual conversations about it compared to here's my opinion, just type whatever you want in the comment section.
Yeah.
I feel like basketball as a topic to be conversed about is very opinionated, and it should be much more lighthearted than the way ESPN or FS1 makes it seem. So that's been my focus lately. So go ahead, check out the Let's Keep It a Buck podcast, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, TikTok, Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere. But that's pretty much it, man. Appreciate you for having me on.
I agree 100% with that. Basketball is entertainment, y'all. It's something that brings people together. And you're right. We should take it as a lighthearted type of thing, man, because it's not politics. It's not gonna kill us. It's not a virus, right?
Yeah, I'm about to say, man, it's a sport, bro. It's a game.
It's a
It's
game.
literally a game, man. Let's
It's a
have some fun with it,
game.
man.
So let's end it on that note, y'all. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys hit the like, share, and subscribe. And forever, whoever watches it from B Soul's channel, welcome. We're covering the team here daily as well. And we appreciate all support. Make sure you leave a like or a rating on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all platforms. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.